suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Welcome to the program. I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Thailand. Hello, Gila. Welcome back.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to all our viewers. I'm Gila Pablo, bringing you the latest news in the dynamic ASEAN region. On today's headlines.
The number of journalists jailed around the world hit a new record this year, according to the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists, with China and Myanmar having put a quarter of the 293 media workers behind bars.
Also this week, the former leader of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, who was ousted from power in a military coup early this year, has been sentenced to 4 years in prison.
And the death toll from the eruption of Indonesia's Mount Semeru has risen to 39, according to authorities, as rescuers scramble to retrieve more bodies under the threat of further volcanic activity.
A Thai tycoon accused of poaching wildlife in a national park lost his final appeal Wednesday in a long-running saga that drew public outrage over the elite's perceived impunity.
First in our news, local reports say Myanmar soldiers rounded up and killed 11 people in a village, including children, shooting and then setting them on fire. According to a Reuters report, a volunteer aid worker in the area who asked not to be identified told them by telephone that troops had entered Don Tao village early on Tuesday and the victims were killed at around 11 a.m. Another witness who spoke to the Associated Press corroborated the same account. The U.S. condemned this and expressed outrage by these reports. Take a look.
We are outraged by credible and sickening reports that the Burmese military bound 11 villagers, including children, in northwest Burma and burned them alive. Appallingly, this is not the first time we have seen reports of the Burmese military using such tactics to oppress the people of Burma. The military's widespread use of horrific and brutal violence underscores for us the urgency of ending the Burmese military's culture of impunity by holding military actors accountable and restoring Burma's path to inclusive democracy.
The number of journalists jailed around the world hit a new record in 2021, according to the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists, with China and Myanmar having put a quarter of the 293 media workers behind bars. Here's Robert Mahoney, the Deputy Executive Director of the Committee to Protect Journalists. Let's listen in.
This has been part of a trend of creeping authoritarianism around the world. Governments are becoming increasingly intolerant of criticism, of investigative journalism, of journalists looking into things like corruption. And so one of the ways of silencing those journalists and sending a signal to other journalists who might do something similar is to jail them. China has headed this list of top jailers of journalists for several years now. But what we saw this past year is the effect of the draconian security law that Beijing imposed on Hong Kong. And so now we have journalists and publishers in jail in Hong Kong for the first time. We have instances of security forces firing live rounds into groups of unarmed demonstrators, ramming them with vehicles. We will not know about this unless we have independent journalists out there on the streets filming and recording what is going on, interviewing those demonstrators. And the military knows this. And so they have essentially rounded up anyone doing independent reporting. Most governments do care about their international image. They don't want to be embarrassed in international forums and conferences. And so they will react to pressure. And that's the only hope that we can have, that the work that we do can bear results. Because as the data show, otherwise the situation is getting worse.
The association also counted 24 journalists killed around the world. This year.
Also this week, the former leader of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, who was ousted from power in a military coup early this year, has been sentenced to 4 years in prison. However, Myanmar State TV says her sentence has been reduced to 2 years after a partial lockdown. Former President Win Myint was also initially jailed for 4 years on Monday, but was also pardoned by the junta chief, Min Aung Hlaing, and then sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, according to a statement read out on state TV. The deposed leader was charged with incitement and breaching COVID restrictions. They will serve their sentences by remaining under house arrest in the capital of Naypyidaw, according to the statement, without giving further details.
We condemn all human rights.
Amnesty International immediately condemned the sentences against Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi, who was convicted in a ruling on Monday, was initially given a 4-year term. The sentence was reduced after a partial pardon from coup leader and Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing. Here's Emerlyn Hill, Amnesty Asia Pacific Deputy Regional Director for Research. Let's listen in.
This is actually another example of the Myanmar's very harsh response to those who oppose it. It shows that the military wants to eliminate any opposition to its rule, including the leadership of the opposition government. This is also an example of the harshness and the viciousness of the military once it wants to impose itself on the people of Myanmar. This is not about only Aung San Suu Kyi, but this is about the hundreds of people who have been detained since the coup just because of their peaceful exercise of human rights, just because they oppose the military. So the way they're going after Aung San Suu Kyi, it may be worse the way they're going after other people who oppose them but do not have the profile of Aung San Suu Kyi. It appears that the military junta does not really care about what the international community is saying. They have been like that, if you recall, 60 years ago when they took over Myanmar. They were like that. They were ready to thwart any kind of international engagement on what is happening on the situation in Myanmar. They were ready to do all kinds of acts and be criticized until the international community finally steps up to make the military accountable for its crimes under international human rights law. The military will keep on violating the rights of the people of Myanmar for many years to come.
Any comment, Ms. Suu Kyi?
Meanwhile, the UN's top human rights official has condemned the imprisonment of Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and called for her release. The development follows reports that a military vehicle slammed into demonstrators in the city of Yangon River over the weekend, leaving an unknown number injured. In a statement on Monday, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet maintained that Ms. Suu Kyi's guilty verdict was the result of a sham trial and secretive proceedings. Again, let's listen in.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, deeply deplores the conviction and sentencing of Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi following a sham trial before a military-controlled court without due regard for international fair trial standards. The conviction of Aung San Suu Kyi will only deepen the rejection of the military's rule. This comes a day after security forces in Yangon mowed down protesters in a truck and followed with the use of live ammunition against unarmed peaceful protesters. We call on the authorities to immediately release all those who have been arbitrarily detained, some 10,000 political prisoners. We also understand that some 175 of these individuals have already died in detention due to ill treatment and torture. The High Commissioner has expressed concern that these developments risk further exacerbating tensions and violence in Myanmar.
Myanmar's military took power in a coup on February 1 after declaring the results of the November 2020 elections invalid. More than 10,000 political prisoners are believed to have been detained, and at least 175 have reportedly died in custody, according to the UN Human Rights Office.
Malacanang said the 2-year jail sentence of Myanmar's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi is an internal matter that should not be interfered with. Let's listen in.
Well, this is an internal matter, and this is part of their domestic affairs, and so we would rather not comment.
Monday, a court in military-ruled Myanmar sentenced Suu Kyi guilty to 2 years in detention on charges of incitement and breaching coronavirus or COVID-19 restrictions. She was originally sentenced to 4 years in prison, but the military junta leader reduced it to 2 years detention in her current location. Former President Win Myint was also sentenced to 4 years, also later reduced to 2. United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet slammed the Myanmar junta over Suu Kyi's conviction, demanding for her release.
Meanwhile, young anti-coup recruits are lining up at a secret camp in Myanmar, hands behind their heads and stomachs braced, waiting for a drill instructor to deliver a punch to toughen them up for their fight against the military. Since the military coup in February, dozens of People's Defense Forces, or PDFs, have sprung up across the Southeast Asian country to fight back against the general's putsch and subsequent crackdown. Take a look.
That tool now, tall, let the gunna, that tool, I can't go. Mackenzie, Evelyn, Mackenzie, tea, Mooke, Evelyn, Mooke, I wanna. I
won't believe I hope. I think good year, General, type when my wing food, then we general, Nilan let them do, they don't let them take food, a job, Kulos, General Pena Latin, then change General, she down to Yame. General, I think people won't believe our hope.
Then go let's see Louis Aku out chance he doesn't be nice swing. Jonathan take care of the ham over, blue pit and rogue conflict Casalo Yare, the Chada Tani Pinelli Mian cooking. I remember. Piro Kuka, the Louis Aga, Loma Pusham Babu, send they Miashi ever no Satinable. Let's see Chenega, the General Yapinega, Lumia, name you Pinam La, Sura General. Oh. ယုံကြည်ပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဖြစ်လာလိမ့်မယ်ပေါ့နော်
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will head to Southeast Asia next week on a tour designed to show the region's importance for the U.S. strategy of confronting China and to further address the worsening crisis in military-ruled Myanmar. Blinken will start off his round-the-world journey with a meeting with his G7 colleagues Friday through Sunday in Liverpool, England. His spokesman, Ned Price, said in a statement Wednesday. Blinken will then head to Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand to stress the top priority of U.S. foreign policy, which is to challenge an ever more assertive China. The United States accuses China of regional intimidation and pressure, especially in the South China Sea. Daniel Crittenbrink, Assistant Secretary of State for East and Asian and Pacific Affairs, told reporters that Blinken will also discuss unilateral PRC actions in the Mekong River, as well as freedom of navigation and freedom of overflight. The Chinese government has come under criticism for building dams upstream on the Mekong River, which affects water levels and fisheries in neighboring countries. In Jakarta, Blinken will give a speech on the significance of the Indo-Pacific region, while in Kuala Lumpur, he will address the need for the region to remain free and open, Price said. I quote, "In each country, the secretary will reiterate to his counterparts the importance of holding the Burmese military regime to account for its crimes and seeking to restore Burma's path to democracy," according to Crittenbrink, using a former name for Myanmar. The United States has repeatedly denounced the February 1 military coup that ousted the civilian government in Myanmar and the jailing of civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Blinken will stop in Hawaii December 17 on his way home.
Okay, another news, Facebook parent Meta will ban all pages and accounts belonging to Myanmar military-backed businesses, it said, expanding its restraints on the country's armed forces. Myanmar's secretive military has extensive business interests with tentacles in industries as diverse as beer, tobacco, transportation, textiles, tourism, and banking. Activists and rights groups say they funded crackdowns and abuses even before the February coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi and launched a bloody crackdown on dissent. The pages of Miyawadi Trading Limited, Miyawadi Bank, and Myanmar Beer, all included in the 2019 report, were inaccessible as of Wednesday. A page for the film production company, allegedly run by the daughter of the junta chief, Min Aung Hlaing, was also blocked. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Gila and I will be back right after this.
ka ba kayong mag-relax?
Ba't nagdadrama ka dyan mag-isa?
Bakit kailangan ba may group? O lagi kayong pagod?
Lilipad lang to. Lilipad lang ako.
Take a break muna. Ano yan? Paano ka naman marelax kung may gulatan? At syempre, ang inaabangan ninyong Game of the Day. What's the word?
Delicious.
Idaan sa tawa. Bawal ang marupok.
See you. Love you. Bye.
Funniest Nakaball videos.
Welcome back to the program. The death toll from the eruption of Indonesia's Mount Semeru has risen to 39, authorities said Wednesday, as rescuers scrambled to retrieve more bodies under the threat of the further volcanic activity. The highest mountain on the island of Java thundered to life on Saturday, ejecting volcanic ash into the sky and raining hot mud on villages as thousands of panicked people fled their homes. Another injured victim died in hospital on Tuesday. It added, pushing the death toll up from 34 to 39. Spokesperson for the agency said 12 people were still missing. The disaster blanketed villages in gray ash and forced more than 4,000 people to flee to temporary shelters. Evacuees had been complaining of coughing, chest infections, and diarrhea, according to medics at shelters in Lumajang district. Others expressed relief at making it out alive and being reunited safely with loved ones. Rescuers have been braving dangerous conditions in their search for bodies buried under the mud and rubble of collapsed houses. The head of the country's volcanology agency said there was also still the potential for secondary eruptions and warned people to stay away. Indonesia has more than 130 active volcanoes and sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where the meeting of continental plates causes frequent volcanic and seismic activity.
Now, as reported, Mount Semeru has erupted on the Thai island of Java, Indonesian island of Java, leaving surviving victims homeless and traumatized. And the government has promised to relocate the families as the search for survivors continues. Take a look.
Saya mendapatkan laporan kurang lebih 2.000-an rumah yang memang harus direlokasi. Ini segera akan kita putuskan di mana relokasinya, dan saat itu juga akan segera kita bangun karena saya kira semuanya sudah siap.
A Thai tycoon accused of poaching wildlife in a national park lost his final appeal Wednesday in a long-running saga that drew public outrage over the elite's perceived impunity. Construction magnate Chai Karnasuta was arrested in February 2018 when park officials found guns, animal carcasses, including of a college pheasant and a red muntjac, and the pelt of a black leopard at his campsite. Chai was found not guilty of possessing a leopard carcass, but he was convicted of 3 other poaching-related charges and sentenced to 16 months jail. It was raised to 3 years and 2 months by the appeals court. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court upheld the guilty verdict and sentence of 3 years and 2 months, a court official confirmed. He and 2 other defendants were ordered to pay 2 million baht, or equivalent to $60,000 in compensation. Chai will not receive a suspended sentence, according to the Attorney General's office. He has been sent to Tongpapum District Prison. Chai's firm, Italian Thai Development Company, is behind major infrastructure projects such as Bangkok's SkyTrain and Suvarnabhumi Airport. He and his sister were on the Forbes top 50 richest list for Thailand until 2016, with an estimated $630 million fortune at the time. But they have since dropped off the ranking.
A rhino horn trader has been sentenced to 14 years in jail, the longest ever prison term a Vietnamese court has handed down for the crime, according to a local conservation group on Wednesday. Earlier this week, Do Min Ton, 36, received 14 years in jail for trading and trafficking rhino horns from the United Arab Emirates into Vietnam. It came after a 2019 discovery by customs officials at Hanoi's Noi Bai International Airport at 55 pieces of rhino horn weighing around 125 kilograms in a carefully disguised equipment. The pieces were encased in plaster and police used rods to break the casts apart. According to non-government organization Education for Nature Vietnam, the punishment is the toughest to date in the country for crimes relating to rhino horns and the wildlife trade. Vietnam and China remain lucrative markets for elephant tusks, pangolins, tiger parts, and rhino horns, because some believe that rhino horn helps cure diseases and hangovers when grounded into powder.
The U.S. government on Wednesday imposed an arms embargo on Cambodia, citing concerns about human rights and corruption in the Southeast Asian nation, as well as China's activities there. The actions taken by the State and Commerce Departments will restrict access to less sensitive military items and defense articles and defense services by Cambodia's military and intelligence agencies, according to a statement. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimundo said, I quote, "We urge the Cambodian government to make meaningful progress in addressing corruption and human rights abuses, and to work to reduce the influence of the People's Republic of China military in Cambodia, which threatens regional and global security." In November, Washington sanctioned 2 Cambodian officials over U.S.-funded naval base that is increasingly being renovated for use by China, alleging corruption in the project. Cambodia's longtime leader, Hun Sen, is one of China's closest partners in Asia, and his government has been dismantling facilities at the Ream base that were built partly with U.S. money and played host to U.S. exercises. Beijing has been increasingly exerting territorial claims in the South China Sea and East China Sea, raising tensions with numerous Asian nations, but Cambodia has increasingly appeared to be an ally.
Mass tourism had brought the archipelago of Thailand, immortalized by the Leonardo DiCaprio movie The Beach, to the brink of ecological catastrophe. And now Thailand hopes to make Phi Phi the standard bearer for a new, more sustainable model of tourism as the country reopens to visitors after the long COVID shutdown. Take a look.
We would like to make sure that everyone has been educated. So that's why we come up with the Marine Discovery Center, where we show like the tourists like what is the impact, what is the biodiversity, what is the relationships between your behavior and the impact to the corals.
We have a plan to give the awareness to the tourists about the importance of the sharks in ecology, and we have a plan to release them back into the nature.
นักท่องเที่ยวเมื่อก่อนมาค่อนข้างเยอะมาเยอะก็หาดก็เลยช้ำขาดความสวยงามปิดปรับปรุงบ้างเพื่อคืนสู่ธรรมชาติผมว่ามันเป็นอะไรที่สมดุลกันมากกว่าครับ
We'll be right back after this short break.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Tulong para sa kabuhayan ng mga katutubong AITAS, inihatid ng Responde. Pagsagip sa mga batang rugby sa Santa Rosa, Laguna, ikinasa. Mga batang isinilang na may club foot, bibigyan ng pag-asa na makapaglakad ng diretsyo. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, mata ng mamamayan.
Welcome back to the news. Women in sports had emerged as one of the key areas of sports cooperation, according to leader of the ASEAN Plus Japan senior officials meeting on sports, Tomohiko Arai. Let's listen in.
Women in sports is definitely one of the key areas. In order to achieve gender equality in sports, the discussion meeting, we held this discussion meeting with the stakeholders on the occasion of the Asian Games in Indonesia in 2018, and the first ASEAN Plus Japan meeting on women and sports in Philippines in October 2019. The ASEAN-Japan workshop on promoting gender equality in sports was held online during the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games this summer in collaboration with the Japan Sports Agency and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In the workshop, government officials from each country and the next generation of women sport leaders gathered and presented ideas for action plans that could be discussed and further discussed and implemented in each country. I also look forward to further strengthening the close relationship between ASEAN and Japan.
My sporting career, of course, when I win the gold medal for the Philippines. I did not win for myself only. Of course, this is my dream. This is the dream of my team, the Team HD, and I do this because that's what we really need right now. I'm inspiration to each Filipino.
The event concluded with closing remarks by Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ECAPAB, Pantawong. Pantawong emphasized that people should start paying attention to women's leadership and career paths in sports constitutions, as well as their safety and protection.
The Philippine Embassy in Thailand received goodie bags from the Iglesia ni Cristo on December 4. Philippine Consul General Michael Linden Garcia thanked the Church of Christ for daling up sa mamamayan to help the Filipino community there. Esther Odanga reports.
On behalf of
members of the Iglesia ni Cristo organization in Thailand once again proved that the pandemic is not a hurdle to keep our kababayans or fellow men. Rather, it is a reason to all the more extend help to those who are in need. A happy Saturday it is indeed, especially for the Filipino communities here in the Land of Smiles who received aid to humanity or lingap sa mamamayan here at Philippine Embassy located at 706 Sukhumvit Road, Bangkok, Thailand, in cooperation with Felix Y. Manalo Foundation. Iglesia ni Cristo members from Metro Bangkok and other parts of Thailand gathered early at the Philippine Embassy to hand out an estimate of more than 100 aid to humanity goodie bags. More importantly, hope and smiles to our kababayans whose livelihood were greatly affected by the current pandemic. The said goodwill bags, which were enthusiastically prepared and transported to the venue by the brethren in the church, contain non-perishable items such as rice, sugar, noodles, and canned goods. In order to ensure the safety of the event, health protocols such as temperature checking, wearing of face masks, and social distancing were stringently observed.
On behalf of the Philippine Embassy and the members of the Filipino community here in Thailand, particularly in Bangkok, I would like to express our thanks to Iglesia ni Cristo through its Aid to Humanity project to be able to provide food assistance to the members of the Filipino community who are affected by the continuing pandemic situation, particularly those members of the community who have yet to regain their employment, even as Thailand is on its path to normalcy.
Good day, everyone. Ako po nga pala si Angelo, kinatawan ng Faith from Thailand community sa Thailand. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat ng lubos sa kinatawan ng INC, Iglesia ni Cristo, at sa tulong ng Philippine Embassy. Kami po ay nagpapasalamat ng lubos sa binigay na biyaya. Ito pong humanity aid. Thank you so much po.
The event is definitely a success. All the glory to our Lord God. With God's help and the guidance of the church administration, we were able to organize the event following safety protocols, and the very purpose of the activity, which is to extend help to our fellow men, has been attained. We would like to commend and thank those who made this event possible. The officers and the members of the church, the Philippine Embassy staff, and all our kababayans who are part of the event. May we all stay safe and well.
To Brother Eduardo Manalo, we thank you for your leadership, and we thank you for the initiative of Iglesia ni Cristo, particularly this Aid to Humanity project, to be able to send assistance to the members of the Filipino community, not only here in Thailand, but all over the world.
We are forever grateful first to our Lord God for placing a dynamic leader in the church, who always show their love and concern to us. To our dear Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, thank you so much po for your constant love and guidance, so we can always fulfill our services to our Almighty God. We promise po that we will always be united with you in all the endeavors of the church for the glory of our Lord God.
Today's event showed the strong Christian spirit of the Iglesia Ni Cristo members. Albeit they are also affected by the pandemic, they prove that they will brave all odds, no matter the distance, sacrifice, and the current state of the world, with a great big smile, love, high hopes, and firm faith. They also demonstrated that no matter what, they are always united to all the endeavors launched by the church administration through the dynamic leadership of Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. From Philippine Embassy, Bangkok, Thailand, this is Esther Odanga. We live in interesting times.
All right, thank you very much, Esther, and thank you very much, Gila, for keeping me company today on ASEAN in Focus. What do you plan for this weekend?
Nothing, Alma. I'll just take this weekend to have long rest.
That's right. That's safer too. Stay home.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you for joining us. Before we go, I'd like to greet our reporter here, one of our reporters, Mads Villar Moratillo. A very happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mads. And thank you for that video. Thank you. Thank you, Gila.
You're very much welcome, Alma. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. And thank you for joining us once again here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Zita Pablo from your Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you very much. We'll see you back on Monday. Same time, same place here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Mapapansin ba ninyo, lumiliwanag ang mundo pag magkasama tayo? Life is so much sweeter, everything feels